So welcome everybody to this evening with Akkai, which is curated by the All India Professionals Congress Maharashtra. We are very happy to have you here. I will be introducing the event in a short bit, but all India Professionals Congress events begin with the recitation of the preamble of the Constitution. At this point, I would like to invite the State Vice President, Mr. Sumed Gaikwad, to lead us in reciting the preamble. Mr. Sumed Gaikwad.
Thank you, Mario. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So we start with the Constitution of India Preamble. We the people of India.
We the people of India.
Having solemnly resolved.
Having solemnly resolved.
To constitute India into.
To constitute India into.
A sovereign. Socialist. Secular. Democratic Republic. And to secure to all its citizens. Justice. Social, economic, and political. Liberty of thought. Expression. Belief, faith, and worship. Equality of status. And of opportunity. And to promote among them all. Fraternity. Assuring the dignity of the individual. And the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly. This 26th day of November. 1949. Do hereby adopt. Enact. And give to ourselves this Constitution. Thank you. Over to you, Mario.
Thank you, Sumed. It was really good to hear that. And may I request Francis or Sham to mute all the mic. I now would like to call upon the State President of AIPC Maharashtra, Advocate Matthew Anthony, to introduce the event and to share a few words with us. Matthew, please.
Thank you, Mario. Very warm good afternoon to everyone, and a good evening also, because we are just getting into the early evening part of it. Now, this has been one such event, which has been looked upon with so much of curiosity from all of our side, as well as, from a lot of people within AIPC, as well as the Congress Party, and from the civil society also. A little bit of history that the reading of the preamble itself demonstrates, why it is important for us to be demonstrating in action about, the value of inclusiveness and equality of opportunity for all the people. We have been speaking about gender equality for some time, but we have to kind of take that into a decisive form. Many people who are still in the closets are yet to gain that confidence. So what we are as AIPC is trying to do across Maharashtra, in our Maharashtra unit, is to reach out to the different units in the society, different specific domains in the society where we all are equals, but doesn't feel the privilege or doesn't have the privilege of the sense of equality amongst them. And at the same time, walking along with them, we also take this to communicate that we have not also walked this path. We are also new to this, so sometimes we might encounter with certain places, where we might have concerns in terms of, decision making in a bold manner. And that's where, we need the community to kind of, support us with specific information related support and knowledge on specific aspects of, the community, where we can help us walk together. What we can assure you is, that we are there with you. We need, the value of equality, the sense of equality be there, felt in words and in action. That is what we are demonstrating here. And good luck to all the organizers who have communicated. And on behalf of the state team, Vice President Sumaid as well as Zara, we are completely supporting this activity, and we look forward to see more and more activities which supports the community. That's all from my side. Thank you. Over to you, Mario. Mario, I'm done.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself.
Yeah.
My bad. So thank you so much for that, Matthew, and thank you so much to all of you for coming here to this very important conversation with Akkai. Welcome, Akkai. Welcome, everybody. Um, Dr. Akkai Padmashali is a renowned transgender activist from Bangalore, Karnataka, and recently also a member of the Indian National Congress. For her work in activism, she has received the Rajyotsava Prashasti, the second highest civilian honor in the state of Karnataka, as well as an honorary doctorate. She is the first transgender person in the country who got a driving license that stated her own gender as female. It may seem like a very small deal for many of us, but it is a huge deal for any transgender person. She also founded the organization named Ondere, and which is it's a human rights organization which advocates for the rights of children, women, and sexual minorities. Now, this event is curated by AIPC Maharashtra. My name is Mario De Pena, and I lead AIPC Maharashtra's Committee for LGBTQIA plus affairs. I'm really proud that AIPC is participating in conversations on the important social issues of our day. Now, this is an old Congress tradition, of course. Almost from its inception, delegates to the Indian National Congress also attended the Indian Social Conference to discuss social reform. So, this is a tradition that now needs to be revived. Lately, these conversations have become very rare as politics becomes solely about, winning the next round of elections. That's important, but politics is also about building a better society. So hopefully our work here is a step in the right direction. I was thinking this morning about the first time I met Akkai, which was in 2004 at an international conference on sexualities and masculinities in Bangalore. That was an event that brought together the nascent queer movement in India. And the bonds between many of us were forged over the internet. There would be all these e-lists where we got to know each other, and activists in different cities and countries met each other to chalk strategies out on Section 377 and how to fight it. So it's a bit ironic now in the middle of COVID that we've returned to the internet and to the safety of this medium, but I'm glad we are all here having this conversation. Now, for your information, this event is divided into two parts. In part one, I will have an interview with Dr. Padmashali. While the interview is on, you are requested, if you have any questions for Dr. Padmashali, to send those questions in the chat box to the moderators. After which you will be called on to ask your question, to pose your question to Akkai herself in part two, which is the Q&A. So please keep your questions brief and professional, although Akkai has assured us that all questions are welcome and we hope to have an open and frank discussion. I now would like to introduce to you the other members of the Committee for LGBTQIA plus affairs, Francis de Costa and Sham Konur, who will walk us through a basic orientation on what it means to be transgender in India. Thank you. Sham and Francis, over to you.
Hi, everyone. There's a small slide created by the team, and to start off with, I will go with what does it mean to be transgender? Transgender people are people whose gender identity is different from the gender they were thought to be at birth. When we were born, a doctor usually says that we are male or female based on what our body looks like. But some people's gender identity, their innate knowledge of who they are is different from what we initially expected when they were born. Most of these people describe themselves as transgender. Next slide. So, who is a transgender woman? Who is a transgender man? A transgender woman or a trans woman lives as a woman today, but was thought to be male when she was born. A transgender man or a trans man lives as a man today, but was thought to be a female when he was born. Some transgender people identify as neither male nor female, or as a combination of both. In 2018, Surya, a Hindu trans woman, married Ishan, a Muslim trans, under the Special Marriage Act in Thiruvananthapuram, the first between two transgender people in Kerala. Next slide. Who is a hijra? Are hijras transgender? So in India, hijras are a close-knit community based on rituals of initiation, who live in distinct household or gharanas, called as, led by gurus. Their gender identity varies. Some hijras consider themselves neither male nor female, where others consider themselves female. Some hijras consider themselves to be transgender, others don't. In 1998, Shabnam Mausi became the first hijra in India to constitute a state election successfully, winning the Sohagpur constituency in Madhya Pradesh Vidhan Sabha as an independent MLA. Off to Francis.
Francis, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, how do we address transgender people respectfully? Use the language a transgender person uses for themselves. Words used to describe transgender people in the past, such as eunuchs, are now considered to be demeaning. Pay attention to how the person, the trans person, refers to themselves. If you do not know what pronouns to use, please ask politely. If you accidentally use the wrong pronoun, apologize and move on. Be careful and considerate about what questions you ask. There are many topics: medical transition, life, pre-transition, sexual activities that are sensitive, and information of which is unnecessary to treat transgender people with respect. How do we interact with transgender people respectfully? Someone's transgender identity is their private information to share, whether they want it or not. Just because someone has told you that they are transgender does not necessarily mean that they have told everyone in their life. Avoid compliments or advice based on stereotypes about transgender people or about how men and women should look or act. People sometimes intend to be supportive but unintentionally hurt transgender people by focusing on their looks or whether they conform to gender stereotypes. Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you,
Mario.
Sham
Over
and
to you.
Francis. Thank you, Sham and Francis. And now we begin the interview with Dr. Padmashali. Akkai, shall we start? Akkai, please unmute yourself.
I did actually, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with the very basics, Akkai. Tell us what your childhood was like and what was your experience in school like?
Thank you so much for organizing this from the All India Professional Congress, especially from the Maharashtra wing, and to all the, key stakeholders of this committee has come forward to definitely to look what exactly is about the issues of sexual minorities or gender minorities we are talking about today. I think this would be a time and situation where the history needs to be recorded, to having this such panel in the open public, the post two Supreme Court verdicts. I think to begin my journey is no, I think it's nothing special. All of us do have our own stories. We all keep traveling in the same ship. I think the society is so rigid. It is so social construct. It is also patriarchally notioned and gender stereotyping ourselves. I think when you cross those boundaries, it's always obvious that the society thinks from a context of a patriarchal perspective, saying that a man who bonds with male identity, a woman who bonds with female identity, if you're crossing those boxes to choose your own gender, I think obviously the society has their own restriction. I don't want to blame my society because my society is not educated. People may have maturity. At the same time, how do you also build consensus? How do you build awareness? With that context of society, I was born in a middle class family. My father was working with aeronautical development establishments. That means the Ministry of Defense. He was part of it. And I have my mother, who is housewife and very good friend of mine. And I lost my father recently, 4 or 5 months ago, because of a heart attack. In the COVID situation. And I do have my siblings. One is my elder cis women sister who got married to a Dalit man, and my brother who is a younger one to me and who got married to a Roman Catholic Christian woman, breaking stereotypes in the context of class, religion, gender, sexuality across. I think our family becomes a very model family. Though my father is a strong supporter of the right-wing politics, I think apart from him, the rest of the family we stand with Congress. That's the uniqueness of this family background. And I think the journey was not so easy, and the journey is still not easy. I think there's a way ahead to go. And what would be this? Like when I meant to say this, there is an amount of lack of education, this lack of acceptance within, this lack of self-esteem, lack of confidence, and lack of self-respect or dignity is concerned. How do you build that? Many people, I think we are not talking about people sitting in this room having access to these Zoom links, internet, online, etc. There are so many people who are working class, non-English speaking, who are not used to touch iPhones, who do not have a knowledge how to operate this so-called online or internet functionality. I think India is not developed. We are in the process of developing, and we have also having that responsibility of to reach the unreached, especially from the marginalized, oppressed section of society. With that process, I think my childhood was very challenging. As you all, might be aware or knowing through, born a male, feelings are feminine, wanting to behave in a woman. From the process of you're born to the transformation of your gender and self-recognized gender, something which disturbed my family, which disturbed my siblings, which disturbed my neighbors, my relatives, my teachers, my friends, my relatives, my government, my public, my society. I think the pluses can be keep adding on, but you are as a community do not have a self-acceptance or self-confidence, but you are always there to justify someone's myth and misconception. You're always there to justify someone's social construct norm. I think when I tried to attempt suicide twice at the age of 11 and 12, twice I tried to kill myself. I think my second time of attempt, I questioned back myself why I should die. I'm perfect and you're not perfect, and you means that the larger society. How do you take up the responsibility to educate society, not questioning what society does me? What is my contribution towards to the progressive of society is a big question that came to my front. I think with that context, I did not choose to die. Many people who come to me with that notion of to kill themselves, I always say arts is very small issue. Let's not lose our lives. It's very precious. We need to survive. We need to live for the cause, and let's make the society a better place to live with proud and dignity. With all of this, I am not a graduated, I am not a PhD holder, I am not a second PUC passed, not even 10 standard passed. Yeah, I am a mathematics failed person, born brought up in Karnataka, Kannadadavadu. Mother tongue is Telugu, but I don't speak Telugu, so ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. I'm part of south part of India, and കുറച്ച് കുറച്ച് മനസ്സിലായ മലയാളം, തമിഴ് కొంచెం പേസരെ. All the communicable languages I does. With this, yes, I was there, but my desire was to be an advocate. My ambition wants to be an advocate, but my further expectation was that I wanted to be an engineer, civil engineer. Somehow that did not fulfill, but fine. I think you can be advocate not on the paper as BA LLB, but advocating your rights to the larger society. Many professionals who are part of this larger, so-called formal education system are really immature and not aware about the issues of the unspoken terminologies of sex, gender, sexuality, and the politics of gender identity and sexual orientations is concerned. And that's a big question to all of us as a movement, as a community, as a so-called progressive liberal, movement or activists or feminists. I think we are part of this entire society to build and nurture, to ensure that we are having a support and solidarity system within the society that we are talking about. The second thing is about my profession. Being in the streets as a sex worker to a beggar was not so easy, which is challenging, and you're vulnerable. You're always in street. I know the whole politics of street. I was lived their experience. What is police violence, what is gunda violence, what is local public violence, how there's social exclusion, like in the name of your profession, your gender, your class, your language, and many aspects of it. I think we are in a path of eradication or to combat all sort of existence of the so-called patriarchal notion. I think which is challenging to all of us. And how do we do that? The big question. Yes, and I'm a classical singer. I wanted to be a classical singer. Unfortunately, my grandma did not teach me the classical musics. But saddening part, I learned this classical, devotional slash, Sangeeta through watching the Chandana, government channel, and from that I started to learn the devotional classical musics, and I'm still learning whenever I get my time. And the English what I'm talking to you today is not so-called the English that I learned from any university. I think that was my determination to learn English through practicing 5 words in a day, taking from a dictionary and executing it into the daily language. You got it? So that is what my determination, and I learned English whatever to my professional skilled box as to saku. Got it? You also can't learn beyond that. Okay? And we also have a mind thing, and I'm just 35, 36 years old. I'm still young. Till I die, I'm young. Okay, age is for age and not for us. Okay, and in talk about my sexuality, I'm a heterosexual woman. I identify myself as a woman. Questioning back the norm of society, I say that I'm a woman, and women cannot be restricted to vagina, breast, uterus, periods, etc. Okay, women should always be thought in the process of we are beyond everything, and women is capable, women is skilled enough. It's because of lack of opportunity. I think we are here as so-called vulnerable section of society.
So, Akkai, I really appreciate how honest you are being with us and how you are really just bearing your life, for all of us to hear about. We are so amazed at this level of honesty, and many of us, in the party, in AIPC, have not, been witness to this kind of just bearing of all of your private life to us. So, thank you for that. I'm so sorry to hear that you attempted suicide twice when you were young. So was it the inner conflict that you felt, that that your body did not conform to who you were in your heart, that led you to to take that chance? And at what point did you realize you were female?
I think, yes, definitely my sex and my psychology was really conflicting. When I was born with male identity, my parents said, you are born with male identity. You have to behave like a man. You have to walk like a man. You have to speak like a man. And you have to ensure that you are a man amongst the entire larger society. For the time being, I was accepting what my parents were saying. But when I come to inside my house and room, I was saying that no, I'm a woman. So taking the dual stand, which always conflicts, it's not only from a male to female transgender perspective. Assume a female to male transgender perspective too. More vulnerable than the male to female, because for male to female, you have some sort of social recognition, some sort of cultural recognition from your Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita to many other sacred books. At the same time, it is challenging for female to male transgender people, and especially in that the intersex communities, but unspoken. Assuming the society's nature and context of if you're female means only you have to shut your mouth, you can't question the authority, you are being rejected across sections and silencing your voice in the name of women or a female. And assume a female born person whose feelings are masculine and wanting to become a man, the transition from your sex to the gender, and assume how does the psychology and sex always conflicts. Many cases in High Court of Kerala, High Court of Karnataka, High Court of Haryana, people, we have brought so many other issues before the court to educate them. There's an existence like this. I think very unfortunate that the society we are living in is that we need to keep justifying. I think I want to see a world or a society where whatever my dress is not a matter. My gender is not a matter. My sexuality is not a matter. If I say I'm this, I want to ensure my society will create that atmosphere. I want everyone should live with that peace, love, and affection with pride and dignity.
Yes, and the society and also our countries, because so many of our countries don't, our government does not accept it very often. A lot of transgender people find that when they go to get their documentation, it's always an uphill task with the state authorities. So yes, there is a lot of work to be done on that front. You've also, in your voice, there is just such clarity of thought, and it's such an activist voice. So how did you come into activist work? Did you always feel very strongly about these kinds of talking about issues openly? How did you come into activist work?
Activism
And tell
has
us
no
about your journey. Sorry.
no, activism, according to my language, it's not profession, it's not personal, it's not middle. you know, Especially from a vulnerable community perspective. A Dalit child who borns in a Dalit family, you know, when the child is born, doesn't matter if the child is intersex or a girl or boy, okay? The assumption of social exclusion in the name of caste and in the name of class and in the name of disability, we need to ensure that people always have voted cap, that they are ready to face the discrimination. From that context, taking that example to the transgender community very particularly, or to the sexual minority community very particularly, I think we have wore that cap. If you're born like this, you will be discriminated in society. I think my realization of my feminine character at the age of 8 years, very paka, saying that I'm no more a boy, I'm a girl, at the age of 8 years, and that 8 years has really brought now 35, 8 to 35, almost how many years? Yeah, 25 years
Yeah.
approximately. I
Yes.
think when I realized my mindset, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. From that age till 35 years, I have still constantly struggling in the sense of actively educating society through, like your own perspective of activism, you know. But when I was in the profession of sex work and begging from 1999 to 2004, I think it was lack of opportunity. I took up sex work, I took up begging because lack of opportunity. I think I did not choose to be a sex worker, I did not choose to be a beggar. It was the so-called societal or society's gift that you're having these options and accept it. If my society would have been left me to read the way I wanted to, or to express my own feminine language or body language or my confidence, I think my friends, my teachers, I think a cross section has, should take up that responsibility. For me, being a beggar and sex worker, it's a responsibility of the entire society. you know with that, all of this, I also wanted to mention that yes, I agree with you. In the activism, section or path, you do activism for what? To ensure your social status, your economical status, your cultural status, to ensure that there should not be any sort of violence. There should be a non-discriminatory world. I remember how Nelson Mandela fought for himself and for the entire black community. you know with all of this, that I think across the globe, the discrimination, the social stigma has come from a very perspective of patriarchy. you know like what I'm trying to say is basically that we, as the most vulnerable section in the entire society, are being rejected, are being neglected, are being socially excluded. Now it's the government's duty to ensure we cannot be socially excluded. We should talk about the politics, social inclusivity. I think across party lines, across party leaders, across wings, I think my constitution has said why exactly I'm sitting in front of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I think he has written this constitution talking and protecting about the plurality, socialism and secularism. What does socialism and secularism means to all of us? How do we understand? How do we ensure to build a support and solidarity for this nation? And India is the largest democracy in the world, almost 130 crore population. This is so richness. I think my privilege to be born in India, and that too in Karnataka, that too in Bangalore. I think I feel proud to speak here today. I feel so proud to speak. It is not so for, I don't feel so proud because of my own agitation. Because 25 years ago, the situation of Bangalore was so pathetic. You were abused, you were beaten up, you were thrown stones at you. People thrown stone eggs at you. You were killed, you were raped, you were assassinated. I think how did you build a consensus in the society? I think the entire dedication is all about activism. I think my movement of sexual minorities, understanding there is a class, discrimination within the movement. I need to contribute the movement's activism in its entire path, bringing such a constitution, morality judgments to ensure that we are part of this larger society.
That's wonderful. And I think about all the privileges that cisgender people like me, have and we take for granted. And transgender people very often do not have the same privileges. And I think about that, and I think how phenomenal it was when you were the first trans person in India to receive her driving license in her own name. And I think that was in 2014 or so. So tell us about that experience and what made you determine that you were going to go and get this driving license.
I need to correct you. There were people who got their driving license as female. Few people got their driving license as transgender. Before the Supreme Court 2014 verdict came into existence, I was the forefront of the National Legal Services Authority of the nation and the State Legal Services Authority of Karnataka took more initiative to educate the entire judiciary and public in
Mm,
general. And I'm so thankful to the Honorable Supreme Court for delivering such historical verdict. I use the word historical. HISTORY, histories in the context of a man and who practices patriarchy. Yeah, her historical is in the context of a feminist and a person who thinks in my context. So I dedicate the judgment to the historical movement. When the historical judgment came, I think judgment, there's so many judgments. There are favor judgment for Dalits, favor judgments for Muslims, favor judgment for the backward classes community, and many other people very particularly. But who is going to implement this? So keeping that huge constitution bench judgment, we need to ensure that yes, we need to implement this. So keeping that judgment, I've been applied for the driving license. I'm so thankful to the Karnataka state officers, you know, Department of Transport. They were so kind enough, knowing that I'm a transgender person and educating. I think few people are also making here and the mischief things. Oh, madam, we can't give you driving license, sorry, because you're a transgender and we don't have any, government order. I said, sir, so excuse me. So please see the Supreme Court judgment. Copy, it says here, you're entitled to access your social entitlements. So keeping that judgment and you made the progress to implement. I'm so thankful to the Karnataka government, especially the Department of Transport, and they gave me a driving license in the name of female without judging, without asking your question 2, 1, 3, 4. They didn't ask that. You said you're female and you're female. I think that challenge made me to access as female before the country, post the NALSA judgment. If the NALSA judgment, exactly after that, I'm the first person to receive the driving license as female. And after
So
that, many people also got access to that as male, female, and transgender.
that's wonderful. So, for everybody who's here, the Nalsa judgment that Akkai is talking about is a judgment from the Supreme Court in 2014, in which the Supreme Court, for the first time, gave everybody the right to choose their own gender. And it was a very historical moment, as Akkai has said. But of course, as Akkai also pointed out, there are so many impediments that trans people, face in our society, and some of these are based on ridiculous stereotypes and prejudices. So, Akkai, what are some of the prejudices and stereotypes that you've had to face, or other people, in your community have had to face and still constantly struggle with?
No, there is prejudice, there is hate, there is resistance, there is intolerance. It also depends on which government rules for the favor of community. I also need to mention we all live in an undeclared emergency nation. I think the country, because of your demonetization, because of your global inflation, and providing 10% reservation for the upper caste, backward classes community, and India has accepted the poverty. With all of these odds, I think yes, there is an enormous amount of resistance, enormous amount of prejudice. And the prejudice is there across your own section. There is prejudice in the name of religion, in the name of caste, in the name of your class, and the dress you wear, and the food you eat, you know, and the language you use, and the politics you believe in, and your faith. I think many aspects come into. If you ask my common grassroots language, what is prejudice? It's okay, leave ya. Like it's part of your life. So you need to face it. How do you face it? So I think my organization, Wandari, we are trying to mobilize people to collectivize them to eradicate prejudice, to eradicate discrimination, to eradicate resistance that has been occurred in this society, which is challenging job, not so easy. As a convergence movement, we are here to speak about dignity, voice, sexuality of the gender non-conforming, the transgender man, transgender women, the Jogapas, the Kotis, the Marladis, the Shiv Shakti, the Jogta, the pansexual, the demisexual, the asexual, the bisexual, many, many diverse of identities locally, culturally, traditionally, globally, regionally, panly. I think people have their own identity. How do you bring up this discourse? A big public forum is a big question to all of us. I'm so thankful to the, like Indian National Congress for getting and having more people from the most vulnerable section. I think I could see this is a party. I don't say it's a party, it's a movement of people having your own differences and still you're working together. I think that you can't see in any other political party system. If you ask me why, now we are seeing just dictators, like either one-man army or two-man army or three-man army or five-man army, people who dictate the entire nation's politics. And my country cannot accept that. We will definitely follow the rules of the democratic principles, you know.
Yeah. So I'm really glad you're also speaking politically and about the political moment that we are in right now. That moment has also produced the ill-conceived Transgender Persons Act, which came out last year. So could you tell us, most people would think, okay, here's an act that is for transgender people. Isn't that historical? Why is there so much opposition to this Transgender Act?
I think if you go through the entire journey of the sexual minorities movement, or the members of the movement or community who we always were in the forefront was the transgender community. 25 years ago, in the name of Section 377, how abusive we were faced by the police, especially police. Why I mention this terminology? Because Section 377, according to the law, which was criminalizing your sexual act, and that act was quoted as against the order of nature. And what is against, what is order, what is nature, and who decides this? In that colonial perspective, the British rulers' perspective, from a very Christianity perspective, those laws came into Bharata, and that Bharata Canon got imposed against one section, and that we as sexual minorities need to experience it. And we as sexual minority, in the umbrella of sexual minority, I think directly the transgender women, the hijaras, we faced many times. We were pushed into jails, pushed into police custodies. We did not, people, the police did not produce before the court. We were raped in jails. Our heads were shaved. We were abused. We were sexually harassed. And where was this law? Who was questioning back? No one was questioning back. I think with this perspective, that I think if you imagine a society, we as a community or sexual minorities, we were criminals from 1860s to 2009. From 2009 to 2013, you were decriminals, especially the Honorable Delhi High Court judgment. The 2013 to 2014, the Honorable Supreme Court said, no, Delhi High Court judgment is unconstitutional. And again, you become a re-criminal. Then from 2014 to 2018, the movement strongly believed the support, the enthusiasm in the entire public. We all came back to public to gain support, to build our solidarities. Then we all went to the Honorable Supreme Court Constitution Bench. Then the Honorable Constitution Bench said, we are no more criminals. We are no more criminals. My concern and my question is that how can a society or a law specifically be so rigid? You are criminal, decriminal, re-criminal, and no more criminal. How can my society play like this? In the journey of this whole criminalization process, many of my community members have gave up their lives, or been killed by the families, by police, by the power of state. Thanks to the Honorable Delhi High Court judgment, I think across doors in the entire globe opened to see what exactly is this judgment all about. I also need to thank the UPA government of 2011, which brought the national enumeration process to ensure how many transgender people in the nation. So the numeric figures are quite less, 4,70,000 some change, but that was not the figure. But the process of opening it to the public, that brought really a sort of open minded for people to think. In the same process, very state specifically, is all about 36A Police Act, which was called as Criminal Tribes Act. In the name of Criminal Tribes Act, the suspicion of you being a transgender or a child sex emasculator. You are kidnapping a child for sex emasculation. You can't beg in the street. You can't do sex work. From your house, tomorrow morning you're going for begging, you need to go to the local police station, maintain a register, do signature. If the police give permission, then you're going to, like the right to mobility was curved in the largest democracy. How do you question back? I think all our fights before the honorable judiciary has really brought so much of positivity in the entire movement. I think now the judiciary, within the legitimacy of its, what happens to the role of the legislators, the parliamentarians, and the parliament and the assemblies. I think it's the right time for all of us that the thank you to the nations, the judiciary, bringing such a very, very constitutional morality perspective. For my country, you may have your religious perspective, you may have your caste perspective, you may have your class perspective. That's all fine. I would definitely respect it. But when it's come to constitution, I think we all bound to the constitution morality. You know, yeah. But yes,
Akkai, last year when you joined the Congress, you spoke very eloquently about your two inspirations. One was Gauri Lankesh, and the other one was Indira Gandhi. Tell us why. Tell us more about the people who inspire you, why these particular people inspired you, and your journey in the Congress thus far.
that's a big question to all of us today too. I think Akai joining to the mainstreaming politics was not a very immediate decision. From 2009, when the Honorable Delhi High Court judgment came into an existence, from 2009 to 2020, almost how many years? Yeah, 10, 11 years
Yeah.
approximately. So 10, 11 years, we were there to, you're in the process of a series of discussion and discussing with people, especially the civil society movement, the women's rights activists, the child rights activists, the Dalit, the religious minorities, the backward classes communities. I think building and educating and knowing them what exactly is politics all about and what is the so-called mainstreaming politics we're talking about. I think the process has really brought me here. I think the main motive or the main motto to join the party, especially the Indian National Congress or the Karnataka Pradesh Congress Committee, was very simple and very clear. When Indira Gandhi was ruling the entire nation, the Iron Lady of this entire world, I think the world needs to give a big salute to the strong woman. I'm talking about the 17th century, in the sense of 70s, 1970s, not 70th century, 1970s, I'm talking about 70s, 80s, I think the women who had the guts and courage to speak amongst the most dominated men, and Indira Gandhi took very, very bold stand and clear stands from the context of the very poor of the poorest,
Mm.
for the poor of the poorest, people who do not have shelter. She brought up that issue. Food, she brought up. Employment, she brought up. Education, she brought up. I think whatever that the nation is now practicing, it's because of from the day when Jawaharlal Nehru period to the recent Dr. Manmohan Singh's period. I think India is stable to that context. And joining here, I think Indira Gandhi, especially my conversation with the Hijra community, the 7 gharanas in the community, when I was interacting with them, they all were in one voice saying that if you're joining party, please join Congress. And my question was why? They said, because Indira Gandhi Amma has worked with us. She has done so many things, especially for food, shelter, free train costs for transgender people, and also to the sex workers. Such I think that has been remained like with people still think it. People say it's Indira Gandhi Amma Paksha, people say it's Hasta Paksha. You got it. I think that was a thing where people were coming to the forefront to talk about this. And definitely yes, that is one part of the thing. Second thing is about the Gauri Lankesh. Why I meant Gauri Lankesh, as I mentioned, be it Pansari, be it Kalburgi Sahib of the North Karnataka philosopher, and Gauri Lankesh, like this very feminist, the people who come from a left or a center politics, who believe that the politics against communalism or communal violence stood with one voice to fight against all sorts of communal violence in the country, and India cannot divide people in the name of religion and class and caste. With that, all of this, I think Gauri Lankesh is a cis women journalist 25 years ago who took a bold stand to support the movement of sexual minorities. I think that became very boost part of it. I'm so unfortunate to remember this. The two Supreme Court verdicts. One is 2014 judgment, which came, the significant day is April 15th. April 14th is Ambedkar's Jayanti. Exactly after that is the like the Supreme Court Nalsa judgment, and the 377 judgment. Exactly after Gauri Lankesh's assassination was on 2017 September 5th. The next year, 2018 September 6th. Exactly after 1 year of Remembrance Day, the next day was the Honorable Supreme Court Constitution Bench judgment delivered in that context. I think now we need to remember here the significance of Ambedkar and Gauri Lankesh. Exactly after their birthday and their death day has come, that shows how the movement has been struggled enough. I think because of Gauri Lankesh's writings, articles has changed so many people's perspective. Her contribution to the movement is high most or at most. I think this brought me together to speak to the voice of the voiceless, to the poor of the poorest. My intention to join party was not to contest elections, not to become any of these so-called bearers or whatever. Wherever we are there, we need to build a consensus or similar minding or similar thinking people to come together to educate. Akkai speaking on sexual minorities makes difference, and my president Mr. D.K. Shivakumar speaking on behalf of sexual minorities makes a huge difference. I think I'm so thankful to the Karnataka Pradesh Congress committee. I think few members are there also here from the All India Mahila Congress to Karnataka Mahila Congress, and maybe various people from NSUI to Indian Youth Congress. I think people are in that supportive way of accepting the way you are.
Yeah.
I think I think that's all about we need. Yeah.
No, thank you for highlighting all these histories.
Yeah.
One last question from me before we move to questions from the audience. You were one of the few transgender people who have met President Barack Obama. What was that experience like? And yeah, just tell us about that experience.
President Obama is just a common human being. He's a black man. Very raised, very raised love with him. Raised love, not fall in love. Okay, if you fall, you're going to fall. So raised in love with the president, and I think as a black man, he has faced enormous amount of discrimination. One. And my visit to the town hall or my visit to the White House, when I was, like I was part of the U.S. consulate. It's called International Visitor Leadership Program. I was invited there. I was also in the White House to talk to some of the top most officials of the Obama's office. I think I was able to bring the dialogue between the United States and the, like India's relationship from a context of the more power and the war on sexual minorities and foreign policies, many aspects of it. I'm so thankful that the conversation brought up to an extent to get this invitation through the change.org. My co-colleague called, Preeti Harman, who brought this invitation to me and asked me to join this, town hall with Mr. Obama. It was very last minute, and I got this opportunity to speak to Mr. President Obama. And I think that was a forum for us, all of us, to ensure that I think somewhere the Transgender Act, the question you asked, NASA judgment is very far from the truth of the current act we're talking about. The Transgender Act still criminalizes. I am not in favor of the act. And acts, any laws should be in favor of the community. What we are demanding, that should be my law, that should be my policy, that should be my act. Not what government thinks from its own notion perspective. With all of that, I think when we're trying to contact the government to bring this consensus or to put up points to before the government did not come to forefront to listen what exactly we're trying to say, and it got chose people to bring these points in the Transgender Act. In the meanwhile, the Obama's town hall program gave such a global attention. It was live program, and I wanted to bring this voice. Akkai did not speak for herself, or Akkai did not speak for one community. I think when she represented the entire sex worker, sexual minority community, you had a forum to bring up your issue, saying that yes, this is what we are facing. I also use the terminology very clearly. If you can go back and see the Obama conversation with Akkai, you will find what exactly I have spoken there. I think that attention brought to the global thing. Then the government wanted to contact me to hear my voice. Then I said, sorry, boss, I don't have time. Why I said this? Because when we were wanting to meet them, they did not give us time. I think it was totally, all the constitutional spaces were totally strict. I think meeting Obama was a good experience, and I met such a greatest and tallest man in the world, especially bringing the most vulnerable section of society's, issue. And I'm thankful that has happened. And thanks to change.org for, bringing this. I think some of the movement also has really acknowledged it, yeah.
For those who haven't watched Akkai's interaction with President Obama, please do. It's on YouTube, and it's a great interaction, and it's also a great way of learning, how to be involved in grassroots politics and how to do grassroots politics. Without further ado, I will sign off, and I will hand it over to my colleagues Sham and Francis to direct questions from the audience towards you, Akkai. Francis or Sham, can you come in?
Yeah, hi, Akkai. We have lots of questions from people here. I don't know which one to put up front, but I see there is a question. I'm sure you have answered this, but from Sneham, she asked, "Do you feel?" I know you have answered about trans bill, but I think it's also important. Maybe it was not clear. So the question is about: do you feel trans bill makes the transgender community feel safe and accepted in India? Is the question.
Now, the trans bill has become a trans act. When the president signs the bill, that becomes an act. And the act, as far as my concern or my knowledge and my interaction with the grassroots communities, keeping the Transgender Act very specifically, the gray lines of this entire act is somewhere they too wipe your tears. This government doesn't know what is social justice. The government doesn't know what is social inclusivity. It is only for the richest of the rich or the rich of the richest. Ensuring that aspect, the Transgender Act very specifically, which criminalizes your self-identification, your sex work and begging from a very far perspective. When someone discriminates you in public, or your own family members, or your own partners, or your marriage rights, or your adoption rights, or your inheritance, I think these are just spoken on the gray lines. There is no depth on it. And a person who experiences sexual violence, or a domestic violence, or a sexual assault, the act are not spoken about the depth of its kind. I think now it's the duty of the entire movement to ensure that we are part of Domestic Violence Act. We are part of sexual assault, law. I think very, very significant that we need to raise our voices. But as far as the Transgender Act is concerned, constituting a National Council for Transgender shall not resolve the problem of the entire movement. And even the council constitution or the formation of this council was practiced such an undemocratic way. Whom did the government consult? The government functions so undemocratically and very far and against the principle of the constitution values. And I'm not for the council and I'm not for the act. I think more of, especially from the southern part of India, we are agitating against the Transgender Act. And now the state I live in, Karnataka, is the BJP led and BJP ruled, and we're ensuring that the act shall not be implemented.
Shall I go ahead with a question from Ranganath?
Yes, please.
Ranganath is asking, how are the emotions and feelings different from a regular male and female vis-a-vis the transgender community?
Nothing different, sweetheart. Just feelings is feeling. Emotion is emotion. Love is love. Sex is sex. You just take it, okay, it's part of your life. Just enjoy it the way you are. There's nothing called a cis man feeling is different, a cis woman feeling is different, a transgender man feeling is different, intersex feeling is different. I don't think so. If you pinch me, it hurts me. If you pinch a cis man, cis woman, that also hurts. If someone dies, your emotion and you cry. Your fear for many things. I think we are living in the same ship or same world with emotions, sorrows, happiness, and joy. So let's enjoy the way we are today.
Sham, you want to ask another one?
Sure. The next question is from Yash. He's asking, what would you tell someone who's young and is scared to even come out to himself because of the societal norms and the pressure by his family?
There is nothing fear. If you compare the last 25 years and now, I think the youngsters were coming now to the open, so-called breaking the closet, and are coming to the open society. I think it's nothing new here. There was a closed door or closed society 25 years ago, but now, because of the long struggle of the entire movement, I think we have now found that space to come open and to speak about our issue. you know if you're facing that difficulty, definitely you can contact my organization Ondede, ONDEDE, and I request you, all of you, to please like the Facebook page. At the same time, if you are feeling that sort of uncomfortableness, now there is, people can go and consult your friends, talk to your, like siblings, talk to your psychologists, talk to your psychiatrists. I think try to educate yourself or try to understand yourself. If you build the local support system, definitely there's a possibility, and ensure that it is not a mandate for a sexual minority person to ensure that we need to only come out. No, coming out or being out or being open is not a mandate. If you feel comfortable, like enough to come, you can. Otherwise, that's fine to be you are. Yeah.
Sneham has a question. How is your organization helping remove prejudice? Can you please elaborate on that?
I think we are a convergence feminist organization, and Vandare is formed from that perspective. How do you build convergence movement from a very, talking about the gender non-conforming transgender sexual minorities perspective, from a violence perspective, from a class perspective, from a caste perspective, from a religious perspective, from your own sexuality and gender perspective? You work with the child rights movement on the gender non-conforming issue. You work with the women's movement to talk about and to build a consensus, accept transgender women as women under the women section, and talking about this issue with the other religious caste minorities movement to build a support and solidarity system. When I mention the support and solidarity system, is something called, you are there also to fight prejudice, discrimination, resistance, and all sort of social exclusion. You got it? For social justice. Got it? So I think it's a bit challenging thing. As an organization alone, you can't do anything. I think a group of people, we can definitely come together and attempt and try to do something. I think that's what my movement did it for, to get this utmost judgments of Supreme Court. I think if we all come together, if we are there to ensure that society needs to change its perspectives, not to change society to be a homosexual or a bisexuality. It's not that. How do you build a consensus and education in society to accept the way you are? If acceptance, love, affection comes, automatically prejudice goes, automatically discrimination goes. I think people, especially talking about from my context, I'm part of many other movements. People accept them so happily, they accept me and my community members. I feel so happy to see that momentum in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in Puducherry, in Andhra Pradesh, and in Telangana. I think these sort of developments I could definitely see from the southern part of India rather than the north. I think the activism needs to be quite strong enough. Yeah.
Sudarshan Kota is asking us about the LGBTQIA politics. He wants to know if it is elitist urban and English educated people only, or are there more?
And what is politics? I'm a social activist. I'm a political activist. I'm a social analyst. You know, if you ask politics, I think our existence, our dress, my hair, my jewels, my smile, my race, my sexuality, everything is politics. If we talk about politics, what is politics that we are talking about? Are we talking about the electoral politics, mainstreaming politics, party-led politics, or the legislation process of politics? I think politics across there is politics. I think from a very mainstreaming slash electoral politics, yes, there is a class, there is a caste barrier. I don't say the discrimination. There is a barrier, and how do you overcome those barriers? You know, I think I remember the Dalit movement is together. Breaking all sorts of barriers when it's come to Dalit issue across Dalit section come together. When I think if you go back now with the current situation, what happened to the CAA? If someone can say what is CAA, country agitating against Citizenship Amendment Act, how it bifurcated to one religious context. And India was not that. Even the Farmers Act, was it necessary for us to bring this Farmers Act? Why was it so? I think the CAA is anti-people. The Farmers Act is anti-people. The Transgender Act is anti-people. The Triple Talaq is anti-people. What is for people, yeah? I think like this, the country is affected by many the elitists, the people who believe and strongly accepts the whole issue of communalism or wanting to bring a right-wing perspective. That is not for my country. That is not for my country. Even the process of demonetization, how many we as the poor of the poorest got affected? With all of keeping.
I think Akkai's video is paused. If Kiran is on the call, can you check? Kiran, can you check what is the situation with Akkai's internet?
Mario, we have many questions, but how much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes more. We won't take too much more of Akkai's time. We've already gone over time. Kiran, can you check what is the situation with Akkai's internet?
I think my internet is working.
Oh,
Okay,
great.
thanks.
We can hear you. Okay, excellent. Your video froze for some time, so we were wondering. Okay. Akkai, if you were finished with that question, we'll ask you maybe one last question, and then we'll wrap up because you've been speaking endlessly for so long. So, Francis and Sham, you guys decide what that last question will be.
Mario, Zara had a question. May I ask Zara to come in, please, and ask a question?
Thanks, Francis. So my question was, would some sort of awareness education right from schooling help the LGBTQ community in having the next generation be more sensitive and children finding it easier when they're confused at a younger age to come out and talk to their parents or approach their children? Should we have education separately for the LGBTQI community in school to give them some sort of awareness? Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All right, thanks.
Akkai, did you hear that question?
I couldn't get the question. Can you please come back with the question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Zara, could you please repeat?
Sure. So my question is, along with sex education, should we also have education specifically to describe and explain to children in school what the LGBTQ community stands for, so that it's easier for children to understand and there's more sensitization and awareness at a younger age?
This is valid actually, I think when India did not took active participation for sex education in the country, I think that was so unfortunate, you know. But if you ask me what is my stand on sex education, I say sex education is a must. Okay, sex education. When I meant sex education, is not about the sexual performance as what we're talking about today. You got it?
We seem to be having internet issues.
Hi.
There, you're back.
Yeah. So when I so when I meant sex education is not about how do you know how you perform sexual act. In the process of sex education, you teach which is good touch, bad touch, which is good smile, bad smile. If some unknown person comes and meets you, touches you, or feels you, whatever that happens, how do you resist yourself? How do you protect yourself? Because all the time police are not there. All the time family members are not there. I think in that path, many of us in the entire spectrum of sexual minorities, either one of the way we have also been sexually harassed by our own family members, from our all so-called religious leaders, sometimes political leaders, you know, bureaucrats and police. Many times we all experience it, but we don't speak it. With this perspective, what I was trying to say, the LGBTIQ and sex education, I don't agree that this sex education should only speak about sexual minorities, but ensure sex education is a sex education. Sexual minorities, I think that the assumption always come, oh, this is a gay judgment. This judgment for sex thing. It's not that. We also have our dignity. Sex is part of your life. Sex is not only the life. And you feel bored, yeah, if you say sex is only life. You got it. So sex is part of your life. It's an intimacy, enjoy, enthusiasm, curiosity, experience, power, money making. People does for various things. And our life is being definitely there across section. And our sexuality and gender is part of your economical system, your political system, your cultural system, your traditional system, your class. As I mentioned, I think we have been connected across, Yeah, I think sex education should also include the issues of sexual minorities. Yeah? Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've gone way over time. To those who've sent me messages, I've read all of them and I will convey the messages to Akkai. Sorry, I didn't have the time to reply individually to you. Thank you so much, Akkai, for that wonderful interaction. I will now hand over to AIPC Secretary for Maharashtra, Ms. Zara Parwal, who will close the session and give a vote of thanks. I invite Ms. Zara Parwal.
Thanks, Mario. Let me begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to Dr. Akkai Padmashali for her time and patiently answering all our questions. AIPC Maharashtra truly believes that the beginning to positive change comes from conversation and awareness. And today, thanks to you, we were able to take a small step in the right direction. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. Let me also thank my colleagues in AIPC Maharashtra, our President Matthew Anthony and our Vice President Sumit Gaikwad for unwavering support always, and the members of our Committee for LGBTQI and our hosts today, Mario, Francis, and Sham, for always curating the most important conversations and doing such a fabulous job of hosting all of us. On behalf of all of our organizing team, we would like to thank every single person who attended for your time and for being a part of this conversation, because it is very, very important we start talking about it. So this is a beginning. And here's hoping our conversation today is the first step towards a tangible change that we can see and feel on ground. To become a fellow of AIPC, you can visit us at www.profcongress.com. In the closing today, let me thank everyone again. In case I've forgotten someone, my apologies. And I wish everyone a great weekend ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Zara. Thank you, Akkai.
Thank you,
Thank you,
people.
Akkai.
All the best to all of
Wonderful
us.
session.
And Happy New Year for 2021. Let's build the future.
Thank you,
Thank you
Akkai.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks for.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Bye, Sham.